when a customer comes in, they're not just getting one of 100 different texts and it's whatever random person picked up the phone. We want to make sure that they're getting, access to and into a set of folks that they already know and that, that they've worked with and that already understand what it is that their deployment is about.
I guess if you'd
Awesome.
like to introduce yourself and kick this thing off, let's get to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it. My name's Jonathan. I'm the COO here at Evolve. I've been here, I guess, just about 2.5 years now. I started in January of 2021. It feels like an eternity, as I'm sure it feels that way for you guys too in the industry, given everything that's been going on. So Zach asked me to talk a little bit about our approach to support. So I'm going to start by kind of describing how we structure, and just by way of background. I do have my responsibility is kind of my scope is I have our service delivery team, so the folks that are implementing new customers and bringing them on board. Then I have our support team, and then I also have our account management team. So essentially the people side of the business, the folks that are trying to bring their expertise to the table for our customers. That's generally in my sphere. I also work really closely with Christian Teft, our CTO, who has responsibility for our platforms, but then a lot of our really high-end engineering talent works with his team. So a little bit about support, and one of the reasons why we think of support as a little bit of a differentiator for us. About a year and a half, between a year and a half and 2 years ago, we modified our structure. We really kind of blew up what we had before and deployed what we call support pods. And a pod is a pretty simple concept. It's essentially we've organized our support techs into groups of techs that are working with defined groups of customers. So, and what we do with our support pods is we try to align like-minded customers. So we have a pod that's very heavy in terms of compute customers and customers that are on our desktop as a service platform. We have a pod that has some very large enterprise customers that are consuming across our platforms. And we have a pod that's a little bit more contact center centric, and another pod that's a little bit more UCaaS centric customers. And the idea here is we want to align customers of similar sizes and scope who have similar needs. One of the things that I'm sure you guys are aware of, and we see this all the time, is oftentimes it's the smaller customers that actually need a little bit more of the handholding and tech support from you because they don't have a substantive IT shop of their own, whereas some of the more enterprise or larger customers, they almost don't even need frontline support because they do a lot of that triage first and then come only with more advanced requirements and needs. But the purpose of the pod is really to build familiarity. We want our techs to get very comfortable and very familiar with each customer's unique deployment. And we want our customers to build relationships between their techs and our techs. So it's not just opening a ticket or a request and throwing it into a nameless, faceless portal. It's okay, sure, open the ticket because we want to have that for tracking, but then shoot a text to the one of the techs in your pod that is going to pick it up and give them a heads up. Hey, is there I just opened this ticket. Do you think you could take a look at it sooner rather than later? Or reaching out to a client success manager who manages the techs in that pod and saying, hey, I just put this over there, but it's kind of tricky for us right now. And do you think maybe you could expedite, getting eyeballs on that? That's really what the whole idea is between the pod. We want to make sure that when a customer comes in, they're not just getting one of 100 different texts and it's whatever random person picked up the phone. We want to make sure that they're getting, access to and into a set of folks that they already know and that, that they've worked with and that already understand what it is that their deployment is about. So in addition to the pods, so we have our pods with defined text, defined customers. We also have what we call the Incident Operations Center. It's kind of a fancy word, but it gives us a chance to use an acronym. We call it the IOC. And that's essentially the intake for inbound phone calls. Any actual tickets go right to the support pods, but a phone call that comes in, we have the IOC who they take the first call and they make a decision pretty quickly. Is this request something that I can do within 5 minutes, right? Is this a configuration change where, frankly, it would take more time for me to transfer it over to the right tech in the support pod versus to do it myself. And so we have that IOC as a way to kind of differentiate, mainly because we want to keep the techs in the pods working on substantive, meaty or weighty issues, whether they're break fix or they're configuration projects or what have you. We like to kind of split out between the stuff that is quick and painless and the things that really require some heavy hitting. So we have the IOC that fronts for it, but they have about 5 minutes before they do a warm transfer right into the tech in the pod. And in some cases, it's right away because it's pretty obvious from the request that this is something we need. So that's kind of the organizational structure of it. A couple of things that I think make it a little bit different, and something that the pods enable us to do is, we like to say that we don't escalate, we swarm. And what that means is, when an incident comes in and let's say a tier two, and we don't really use those designations anymore, but it's something I think everybody can understand. Tech in a support pod picks up the request. As he or she gets into it and they, realize, okay, this is tricky, or this is something I haven't seen before, we don't escalate that out to someone else or to another group. We don't go from, say, tier one to tier two to tier three. When we realize that this is something that requires, it's either it's a P1 incident, meaning somebody is down, or there's a real debilitating event happening, or it appears to be a more substantive, challenging issue to resolve, we more literally press the button, and a swarm of techs with different levels of knowledge and experience and breadth and depth come to the table and surround that tech that's owning the issue with their knowledge and their experience, and they hop on a bridge and they work on it. And the reason why we do that is we don't want the time that happens, and this used to happen in our old kind of sort of waterfall contact center strategy to support, is every time you go escalate and you go take an incident or request from one group, bring it to another, maybe get it all the way up into engineering. Every time that new tech has to go back and do all the homework and learn about everything that happened up to this point. So we swarm around the tech, and that tech owns that issue all the way through the end, but they're getting all the knowledge and resources as kind of an incident captain that they need from the other techs around them. And that's one of the things that we do, because we find it speeds time to resolution. But it also ensures that our techs keep getting better. This has to be a learning experience. They're not going to know everything. They're not going to confront everything. There's always a first time. And it's undoubtedly the case that there's 2 or 3 people that have seen that exact same issue somewhere else and can help diagnose it quickly and enable more people to recognize it faster. So that's just a little bit about kind of the org that I think makes us a little bit different. And then I'll hit pause to see if anybody has any questions. But then I want to talk a little bit about why we did it. So this really started the move to pods with a strategic shift. And I mentioned that I've been here since 2021, early 2021. We made a pretty significant pivot back then. And you may, if you knew of Evolve back then, you probably know a lot. You may even have more stories than I do. But at the time, I think Evolve really kind of saw itself as a platform provider. We were assembling different widgets, technology widgets, and we were kind of providing them in an integrated fashion, and then handing those over to customers and saying, well, hey, here you go. Here's your solution. Go do wonderful things with it. And it was almost, I think, a strategic direction that you'd think about if you were just buying software. Like, here, we've given you this thing. It's configured. Now go do great things with it. And we're kind of done here, right? Well, the new leadership team that came in back in 2021, we all come from an MSP background, a managed service provider background. And in our experience with tech, we believe that customers outsource because they want a managed service provider that truly acts as an extension of their IT team, that has the depth, the breadth of resources that they would build themselves if they had the unlimited budget to do it, right? And so if you believe in that, if you think about it as an MSP, they're coming to you for your consultative guidance. They're coming they want to manage SLAs. They don't want to manage software. They don't want to manage widgets. They don't want to manage people. Then you really need a very different support model, because you need to be able to get that consultative and intimate level of expertise and engagement in front of the customer and in front of their issues as quickly as you can. And that's fundamentally why we made the pivot to the pod structure. And it was hard. I mean, it was a lot of storming and norming. I mean, we probably took a few steps back as we broke all this up back in the middle of 2021. But we're really glad we did it, because sitting here today, our same day resolutions have doubled. We're at 90% of break fixes within 1 week now. We were half of that 2 years ago. Our NPS score, Net Promoter Score, is 50 points higher at the end of 2022 than it was back at the end of 2020. And what's interesting about it is At the same time, our ticket volumes and our inbound calls have dropped by almost 30%. And we don't know exactly what that line is, but our theory there is because we're getting to issues faster and we're tackling them. Customers require less. They come back to us for updates and status less and less because they don't need they don't they're well abreast of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and we're getting it done pretty quickly. So, that's kind of the why behind it. But let me pivot now to how, as partners, you can leverage our structure effectively, right? And for those of you that work with us today, thank you. We're really grateful for your business and your engagement. You probably are aware that every one of our customers is assigned a CRM, a client relationship management manager, and they are great. I love our CRMs. I think they're really strong advocates for our customers, and they're really good at navigating kind of the back office of Evolve to get things done, whether they're billing issues or an engineering thing that's lagging, or somebody wants to talk about a new technology that they would like to deploy. Our CRMs are good at fronting for that. But our most strategic partners and those that have worked with us a lot have learned that it's also important to build relationships with the pods, with the client success managers that manage the techs in those support pods. And for those partners that are a little bit more technically or hands-on inclined, we also encourage them to build relationships with some of the more senior techs that are in those pods, because it is one thing, and we always encourage folks to engage our CRMs. They'll front for just about anything for you. But it's also another just to pick up the phone or shoot a text over to TJ Spalding, who runs our compute oriented pod, or to Ben Silver, who runs one of our UCAS oriented pods. It's totally something we encourage, to just reach out and pick up the phone and call their mobiles or hit them up with a text, or and not just wait for or communicate solely through the ticketing system. I won't lie. I won't say that we've licked it all, because we still have challenges and we're still growing, and we still have sometimes, 3 steps forward, 1 step back. But we really try to impress upon people, we don't want to communicate through a ticketing system. We don't want the only engagement with a customer to be updates going back and forth. And we impress upon our techs all the time. Yes, update the ticket because we want to have the record, but call the customer, get them on the phone and explain what you did and ask if they have any other questions. And we encourage the same thing with our partners. Most of our partners would like to be included as an authorized, either a watcher of tickets for their clients, or even some of them like to open them on their behalf. That's totally cool. But we also, if you really want to take advantage of the pods, we love introducing our partners into these relationships. So, for your most strategic customers that we share together, who's actually, going to, make things happen and move things and put hands on keyboard or reprioritize for people, because that enables you to have a greater leverage and more of a say and a voice, and to help us prioritize more effectively on behalf of your customers. So, that I think is a really, I think our pod structure can help you as much as it helps us. And we welcome having our partners at the table, because we want the same thing. We want a happy customer that, that has all the, technology, abilities and capabilities, both today and future proofed. And we want it to work. And we want them to be really happy with, the engagement and the support that they get. So, we welcome you guys at the table on that. And so, that's kind of a sense for, I think, how we would encourage it, in terms of your engagement with us. So again, I'm going to hit pause now. I probably talked way longer than Zach intended me to. So I'm going to shut up and see if anybody has any questions, or there's any kind of dialogue that would be helpful to have.
Hi, this is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Um, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I just one thing I just wanted to note. I mean, I'm very happy to be a part of the pod structure. I'm very happy that you guys did move to the pod, and I absolutely see a big difference. More most recently, or even within like the last year, I guess I could say, in that structure, and it working
Great.
much better than what they were dealing with. So yes, thank you. But there is just one thing, I almost to play like devil's advocate, but
Hmm.
the customer a little bit is like, they sometimes feel like, but why do we need to go to that next step? They're not always understanding that how the structure maybe is set up. They kind of feel like, yeah, but why would we need to go to the next step? We should be able to just put in a ticket, it work through the system, and it get resolved. Like they
Yeah.
feel like there's a lot put, there's so much put on these pods that it then creates more work for them in the end when, you know what I mean, when they feel like it should just be taken care of right from the get-go. Again, it's kind of like just playing devil's
Yeah.
advocate.
Hey, it's a completely legit question. And let me tell you, my expectation. So the way I think about this, it's not a must, right? You don't have to, work heavily with the client success manager who runs the text in the pod if you don't want to, right? And we have SLAs, right? You should be able to open a ticket and get a configuration request done within 3 business days. Now, incidents or break fix are a little bit more challenging just because you really don't know sometimes, is this something that you can address in 24 hours, or is it something that's going to take a week, or do you have to dip into Cisco or Microsoft or something like that? However, I'm not saying that the support pod that you have to have heavy engagement with the pod in order to get your stuff done, right? You should be able to open a ticket, go through the portal, call it in, and our pod leadership in each of those pods is looking at them, prioritizing them, checking and validating who's been given updates, and so my point on that is you don't need to aggressively engage if you don't want to. What we
Hmm.
find is, particularly our more tech savvy customers love it because they like the idea of being able to reach out to someone if it's let's say they're trying to add memory or disk or something like that. And they know that, I can call, John Nader, and John Nader will know exactly what it is because he's done that for me before. And, and so it's more, Michelle, if you want it, that high touch is there.
Hmm.
But it is my expectation that you should be able to get things done through us in a kind of nameless, faceless way. But what I
Okay.
do find is that our relationships are generally better when we're actually having conversations from time to time about what it is that someone's trying to do, the how, the what. But not everybody wants that.
I absolutely do see our customers feeling happy that they do have the support when they need it, so that is a good thing. So I'm not definitely saying that it's, everyone, but I have gotten a little bit of feedback on that that just thought I
Yeah,
would note.
I totally get it. It can be a double-edged sword.
Mhm.
I can tell you that when I got here, one of the biggest crimes we committed was um, we were too slow to resolve issues, and there was a lot of people that felt like we hid behind the ticketing system and would never actually get on the phone with customers. And I may be saying too much, but we had to do a lot of foundation building and looking in the mirror a couple of years ago, and so in a way you might argue we course corrected a little too far. But I will tell you,
Mhm.
it is also my expectation, because we run dashboards and what have you, that we're nailing requests that customers have quickly, and they shouldn't have to get on the phone with us unless there's something really unique that we actually have to have a conversation about to make sure that we understand their request really well, right? But there are
Right.
plenty of things that should just get done.
Yes. Thank you.
Hi, John. This is
Hey, Tom.
Tom from Vision Point. I came in a little bit late. I apologize. And I don't want to ask a question outside of what the focus really is. So I'm a partner through Intelisys, and
Mhm.
we're an AV integrator, and we do a lot of conference rooms with Microsoft Teams and Zoom and things like that. So we've been expanding our offering, and I'm trying to, have more of these Microsoft conversations. I'm aware of Evolve IP, and I've had various meetings with you guys. So, um, I was wondering if you can give me just some advice on approaching a customer and having that conversation about, Microsoft and getting involved with you guys and the customer. And I don't know if this is the right call for that, but
So, and forgive me, Tom, because I may be a little bit dense. Can you ask your question a little bit different way? I just want to make sure I understand what you're asking. How to,
sure.
how to how to how to engage in what way?
So like an intro call to
Hmm.
introduce Evolve IP,
Yep.
what are your expectations of me, the partner, versus engagement with the client to do discovery?
So we always look. I'm gonna wear my you've probably met Randall Thompson, Chief Revenue Officer, or at least you've heard of him. I don't know, but he always loves to talk to the customer directly, right? Just because there's so many things that we can learn just from having a chance to find out, and collectively between you and us, ask all those qualifying questions around what they're trying to do, where they're trying to go, what their technology preferences are today, what they've done before, what they have, and all the rest of that stuff. But we're flexible. It's your customer, so there are certain partners that want to kind of come to us with a fully baked or fully packaged, hey, I'm pretty clear on everything I want. I've got it 90% there, but now Evolve, have your SEs help me ask the right questions and figure it out. It's typically more successful when we're together, at the right time and place, once you're comfortable enough having that joint conversation with our solution architects, because I think there's, oftentimes, look, I have the other side of it, right? I get customers when they go into the implementation phase. And we're always at a battle with our sales team on all the questions that weren't asked, the elements that weren't, kind of made clear from an expectations perspective. So in my world, the more we jointly get to have that conversation and bring our Microsoft licensing, Microsoft Teams Direct, Azure experts to the table to ask all the right questions, I think the better the likelihood is that we get something that is, that isn't missing anything, that we have to turn around after contract signature and say, oh, Mr. Customer, I know you thought it would work this way, but we didn't understand that's exactly what you meant. Let me tell you how it's going to be. And then we have to figure out how to course correct for there. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the bottom line is we get a lot of really smart people who love asking questions and trying to design a solution. And as soon as you're ready to engage, we'll bring them to the table. We try to be ultra consultative, and we're also, and I don't know if there's anybody on this call that can attest to it, but we'll also tell you when it's not a fit for us. If it's something that is not in our wheelhouse, or that we don't think we're going to be the best at doing this for you. We're not going to put us or you at a disadvantage, or the customer, by suggesting that we can do something that we don't have the expertise or the capabilities to do.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate the overview. Thanks so much.
This is Jerome, Business Class Solutions.
Hey,
You guys
Jerome.
doing a fine job here. As far as the break fix, I'm a master agent like probably most of the people are here, and the reason I'm turning to Evolve IP is we want to get away from the obvious, and like you said, your customer support seems to be the right thing, as well as the U.S.-based customer service. Can you give me a little bit more about that? Is that 100% U.S. customer base? Is that after 5? How does that work with you?
Yeah, so great question. I'll tell you exactly what it is. So not 100%. We do have a small team of folks in the Philippines that work our graveyard shift. But I will tell you something. So a couple things I want to say about this. They are 100% Evolve IP employees. These are not contractors. We source them, we train them, and we made this move because we used to run a graveyard shift with people here in the U.S. and it was a disaster. And I'm telling you, every tech company I've ever worked for, it never works because of the sacrifices you have to make to the kind of person you can hire. And that's not fair. It's a sweeping generalization. There's been a couple amazing gems that for their world, they're nocturnal beasts and they're incredible. But for the most part,
you nailed it. They're wearing an Evolve IP logo, period. Yeah. They're not a 1099, they're your employees. Is that what I'm hearing?
But what we found was asking people in the US to work midnight to 7 a.m. or midnight to 9 a.m. shift, you lose too much. Humans are not built to do that. And so the techs in the Philippines, we put them through the same recruitment process, the same rigorous training. And we also, when we hire them, they work 3 years. I'm breaking a little bit of what I just said a second ago. They work for 3 months, on our day shift, their night shift, as part of their training. So they learn what it is like to work in a pod with all of the folks here in the US. And then they flip back to the graveyard shift. And most of our customers are in the US. Many of them are 24/7. So we do get calls and we do get requests. But but these guys do a great job. And I could actually show you stats where we'll show side-by-side comparisons of US-based techs, Manila-based techs, taking the names out, looking at their stats and their customer sat scores from feedback from customers, and you can't tell the difference. But it is not a strategic move.
It's probably better, and you've seen it. That the reason you're doing what you're doing, it becomes obvious to anybody in the room when you look at what your competition's doing. doesn't matter whether it's Microsoft or the rest of the people, anybody that's got people overseas, it isn't due to their lack of effort or trying. It's
Yeah.
just there's a element they don't know about the product that really.
But Jerome, 90% of our folks are U.S. based, and it's all U.S. based that work really between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. It's really just that third shift where we rely on that. But they also have a U.S. based manager that is managing them here too. So, anyway, so hopefully that answers your question.
It does. So the next question I had for you, as far as your contact center as a service and also your, unified communication, I'm guessing it's Citrix-based for the contact center, and the other is BroadSoft, I believe, which is now Cisco as well. Is that right?
Well, okay. So let me see if I can. I'm not following you necessarily on the Citrix-based. Here's what I'll tell you. We do Microsoft Teams. We do Cisco WebEx. We are talking with Zoom about doing more with them. But in terms of, and then we also have the legacy BroadSoft, right? We do have Cisco Call Center, or sort of what I think used to be called BroadWorks. And then we have our ECS platform, which is our proprietary contact center platform. So ECS is a omni-channel contact center platform that is Evolve software. It's our IP. And so when it comes to contact center, it's typically Cisco Call Center or ECS. We're seeing more and more customers moving to ECS as they start to, really embrace omnichannel. A lot of folks felt like, oh, I want the idea of omnichannel, but they never really did anything with it. But now we're getting to the point where it's almost table stakes. You got to be able to do chat, you got to be able to do messaging, you got to be able to do email, and you got to be able to do voice altogether. So I hopefully that answers your question, but I might have missed something.
The ECS that's homegrown. It's home baked. Is that correct?
It was acquired. We bought a technology out of Israel, I believe, probably 6 years ago, and then we have since done a ton of development on it. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And so that's been your product for how long? How long?
Oh, 6 years plus, right? And many of the developers who actually originally built it are still, supporting it and working. Our ECS development team is in Israel.
Got it. Okay. And then the ECS versus the other platforms used, is there a price point difference? Is there a preference when people start out there looking for something specifically not?
Yeah. So our ECS platform is a little more expensive than Cisco, but it is significantly less expensive than what you're going to see out there if, Nice and Incontact or others. And not to take anything away, it's a look. We don't have the investment dollars, say, that maybe some of the larger publicly traded contact center suites have, but we have 90% of the feature functionality, and we do a pretty good job of keeping up in monthly releases of the software. So what a lot of our customers find is they think it's a real value play. Is it's not the $120 per seat and up, but you get a fulsome omni-channel solution out of it. So that's web based. So we really like the position in the marketplace, but we can, we're pretty aggressive where need be. We have some customers that we can flip from Cisco over to ours, and depending on what they're trying to do, it's really not much of a lift from a price perspective.
Back to your customer service for the contact center, the ECS specifically, would that be the same teams that are involved with the UCaaS?
Yeah, in this we have we have a contact center centric support pod where we have many of our ECS customers. So that the expertise is there, with the contact center suite with our techs. We also have a really strong contact center consulting team that does all of our onboarding. Because especially when you're getting into omnichannel, there's 5 or 6 different ways you can do any number of things. And so we find you got to put a lot of time and energy up front and design it right. Otherwise, you have problems downstream. So we put a lot of care into defining what they really are trying to do right away.
Can you address a little bit for ECS? Obviously, globally, AI has become a big thing. What is ECI or ECS's AI system you guys are using, or do you have one? And if so, what's the integration look like for?
Okay, so you're totally calling me out because I'm not going to remember. And our CTO would kick me under the table. We just this past spring kicked off an alliance with an AI provider. And I'm sorry, you guys, the name is escaping me. This is what happens. I'm sure when you get over 50, you realize that you have to take things out of your brain to put more things in. So I'm sorry. I will follow up with you with the technology
No
provider we're
problem,
partnering
not
with.
a problem.
But
Look,
we have a, but
AI has a lot of talk
we are
right now,
not
but
going to
it's coming.
build it ourselves, Jerome. We're going to
Right.
take best of breed technology and incorporate it into the platform. That's just it's the right way to do. There's people doing really great things, and but customers are pulling us in that direction, and we're ready.
Well, that's the question. So is it a work in progress, or is it fully baked? You guys can
No,
actually
it's a
support
work in progress. Right
Mhm.
now, it's a handful of customers that really want us to, to go down that path, and we're working together to integrate the technology properly, and then we'll turn it into something that's more productized.
That's the truth, and that works perfect.
Yeah. So, hey Zach, I apologize, but I have a customer call I'm a few minutes late for. This was only half an hour, right?
Yeah, no, we're good.
Okay,
Yeah,
I am so sorry, you guys, but I'm getting dinged for a call I got to hop on. If there's any other questions, Zach, just put my contact info in here, and I'm happy to hop on a call anytime, you guys, or what have you, and we'll do it. But I appreciate you hopping on. You guys are very important to our world, and we want to make sure we're doing the best we can to support you and your customers in a collaborative way.
Thanks, Jonathan. And
Thanks, guys.
I can stay on for a little bit too if you guys. I'll do my best to
Thanks,
answer.
Zach. I gotta drop.
Cool. See ya. So yeah, for those of you that want to stick around, if you have any other questions, I will do my best to answer them. But I think Tom, I think I've talked to you before, but as far as Microsoft Teams goes, if you're thinking about, as far as what differentiators you can bring to the customer, this would be one of them. What we talk about all the time is like, there's a lot of suppliers that sell Microsoft Teams. I think Evolve IP has been doing it basically since direct routing was even an option. So, as far as expertise goes, that's a differentiator as far, Microsoft Teams goes. But beyond that, this pod support structure is also a differentiator when it comes to Microsoft Teams as well. Since we've got that dedicated and differentiating pod structure, that's something that you could say, so when you're stacking suppliers together from a Microsoft Teams perspective, and you're looking at differentiators, I mean, a lot of suppliers are going to offer the same kind of Microsoft Teams features, but as far as we go, it's our ability to support them in the way that we do. In addition to that, it's also the other solutions that come along with Microsoft Teams that we do all the time. Whether it's contact center, whether it's desktop as a service. I mean, it's almost like this concept of land and expand. So it's when you're looking at Teams opportunities, you also want to look at the opportunity for a contact center play or for a desktop as a service play, and sort of I don't want to say bundling them together, but just if they are a Teams, if there's a Teams opportunity there, from our standpoint, there's probably also a contact center or or desktop as a service play there as well. So just wanted to kind of touch on that again. The other thing I wanted to touch on too is like if anybody has any need for assets, like if you're looking for assets on DAS, if you're looking for assets on Microsoft Teams, Contact Center, whatever it may be, I can provide those for you. If you want them co-branded, I can do that. I do it all the time. If you want your logo on there, like all that stuff, please let me know. It is not a ton of work, and I love doing that for you guys. If you need, one thing I've been working on lately is drip sequences for customers. So what I'll do is I've made these drip sequences. There's a ton of different types of them that I've made for Microsoft Teams desktop, and I give those to you so you can go to your TSD portal of choice and then upload your list, and then you can use my drip sequence and send that out to your customers. We've found that it works pretty well. So, and it's, just another way that we can support you. So any assets or any sequence that you guys need, anything at all, please let me know. I am your marketing quote unquote guru, as Gary Coben likes to say. Cool. Well, yeah, we're going to do these bi-monthly. So every session is going to have a different guest, or not guest, but speaker, so to speak. Next session is going to be in a couple weeks, and it'll be Gary Coben, which I'm sure you all know and love. So I'm going to try to keep him at about 10 minutes. We'll see.
Yeah, I doubt that.
We'll see how that goes. And I'm not going to have him do a PowerPoint, so hopefully we can just keep him on one or two topics. But yeah, I really hope to see you guys on the next one. And anything that you need from me, like I said, whether marketing or whatever, please reach out to me. I'll send a follow-up with the recording and everything. So thank you guys so much. I hope to see you on the next one.
Thank you, Zach. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
See you guys.
Thank you.